Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Saeed. Welcome to the stage.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
I think we can all agree that over the course of the day, we've talked about the ideal Muslim, the ideal wife, the ideal husband, the ideal marriage, the ideal family. So for many of us, that it has a connotation of being good, close to perfect. But I think the reality is, and if we're all honest, I think we can all agree that human beings are not perfect. And since every one of you is a human being, there will be things in your childhood, in your family, your background, your dynamic, that mean that it is hard to be the ideal. And I think what we're having a conversation about today really is how whatever challenges we faced as children, as teenagers, coming from whatever families we came from, how those show up in our adult relationships. Do you think that we are aware of this enough?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This is a very difficult subject matter. I have an aunt, I have brothers and sisters and children here. And right off the bat, it's not a blame game, and one isn't finger pointing. One of the challenges I had when we were talking earlier, and I said I needed to go work on myself. And during the courtship, I came to the realization that I had too many skeletons in my cupboard that were really disruptive in my life. I've struggled for years with these challenges, and I'll go through them. It's not about condemnation, cursing, not forgiving. It's just my reality. Between the ages of 4 and 8, I've had a series of traumatic experiences ranging from physical abuse, psychological abuse, alcohol abuse, meaning a child being forced to drink alcohol. I've had sexual abuse. It created a streak of anger because as a child, you felt there were people that were supposed to protect you from those types of incidences. But when amongst the people who were supposed to protect you happen to be the abusers, it becomes extremely complicated to deal with. So, in preparing for marriage, these were issues as a male child. You're trying to be comfortable with your manhood and say, I'm ready to be what I'm supposed to be, but I'm dealing with these things. And Sister Naima, why does it matter? For a while, I thought I could deal with it on my own. I couldn't. And I'd assumed that after those 3 years, I would have been ready to be a husband. But after getting married, I realized I still have a long way to go. So, and I promised myself, because of what happened to me, and I truly felt I had caring, loving parents, but they just didn't get it. And that's why I said, it's not a blame game, I'm not finger pointing. I had to talk to my wife to help me deal with the anger, the frustration, because the slightest suspicion of manipulation or anything like that is a trigger. All it does, it takes me back. As I got more advanced in university and I was taking psychology classes and what have you, I realized it's a major problem in almost all the cultures in the world. But what people often assume is maybe 95% of the victims are women. Not so. Men are also affected. But what it does to marriage, having children, raising children, is why I want us to discuss this.
Yes. And just so the audience has context, the reason we're having this interview is because I had Brother Saeed and Sister Maryam on a podcast of mine on YouTube. And we had a summit, I think it was Secrets of Successful Wives or something like this. And we were just talking about, they were talking about their relationship. And Brother Saeed came out with this, at the time was a bombshell, because it was something that you hadn't spoken about before, which was that there was abuse in your childhood. And opening up about that is hard. We know our culture as Muslims, as Africans. We know our culture. We know how we don't speak about certain things and how certain things you're told to forget about it, sweep it under the rug, pretend it didn't happen. But I think the reason we're having this conversation is because if any of us has experienced any kind of, let's say, abuse of trust, let's say abuse of trust, physical, emotional, sexual, whatever, and it hasn't been addressed and it hasn't been healed, it is going to come back up in your relationship with your spouse and with your children. So this is why we're having this conversation, is to invite anyone who this applies to acknowledge that wrong was done. And that's hard. Because you said about your parents, you said that they were good people, they just didn't know better. Can you give us that perspective? Because some of us don't want to acknowledge that maybe, yes, my mother was a bit too violent with me. You know, maybe my father shouldn't have done X, Y, Z, and we don't want to say that because we want to honor our parents, because we love our parents. So how do we square that circle?
What makes this extremely complicated is, you know, the love is there, but their experience is what made them what they are. So you may want to quickly condemn and criticize, but you don't know how they were raised. So my mother came in, raised in that sort of environment, and felt that was the way to go. I was just 4 years old. My father's teacher comes to visit the house. My father takes me to visit him. So one day after school, I just stopped by at his house. Didn't come home. No phones. Everybody was worried. They kept searching. Finally, my father's former teacher brings me home. My father was, oh, thank goodness, I'm relieved. Alhamdulillah. My mother was, And then my father turned around, took me into the room, locked the door, and that was when trouble began. My father kept knocking. Basically, that was how I got separated from my mother, because he said no. I was taken to another caregiver. This caregiver, a sort of an educator, wanted to teach me language, English and Hausa. And for those who know Hausa books, at that age, she taught me Magana Jariche, and I was able to translate it into Hausa. Those days, those who are old enough will remember Toma and Tani. I read in English and translate into, Magana Jariche into English and Toma and Tani into Hausa. But the method she used in convincing me to read is she'll take a knife, sharpen it, and says, if I don't read, she'll slaughter me. Now, think about the trauma of a child separated from his mother, doesn't really understand why, and that's her methodology. Now, I get anxious, very anxious, adrenaline high. When it's time to sleep, There's a little cup, glass cup. The booze use it to drink tea. She will fill it up. Those who know alcohol or some sort of alcohol, Guinness. She gives me the Guinness to knock me out. Every night. Following day, I'll beg my father to remove me. Fortunately, that lasted 2 years, and the whole family was put together again. What makes it complicated? That same woman has such a wonderful place in my heart. So, but all of those things created this confusion. And as I was growing older, I just couldn't reconcile the love and the treatment, confusion in my head. I'm getting married. I'll have kids. How do I handle that? Am I ready to be a father? Will I be a good father? I will tell my dad. My dad at that time, to be very honest, was helpless. He didn't have many places to take me. And I could see the frustration. Unfortunately, when we all got together as one family, that was when the sexual molestation took place. A neighborhood boy having me touching him and so on and so forth. Again, you're innocent, you don't feel it's any harm. It's when you get older, you read more, you understand more and so on, and you start realizing something wasn't right. Do I express bitterness, anger towards these people? I came to realize it's not that simple. But what do I do with the anger? And that was when I got married to Miriam, I said, let's not go there. I am not healed yet. To be honest with all of you, there's something I couldn't even tell Miriam until last month. We've been married 33 years. Why I'm saying this, why I'm raising this. We all have trauma, men do, women do. But like Sister Naima said, we have a culture, don't embarrass us, sweep it under the rug. You're not going to tell people about this. Nobody cares about the problem the person is going through, the hell they're going through, the shame they're dealing with. Nobody. And we've had cases in marriages where the moment the women, because I've counseled quite a lot, both men and women, who've been traumatized, who've had some of these experiences, what gives them the confidence to open up is the fact that I'm talking to somebody who knows my story. It destroys marriages. When I look back, I'm not bitter. But what I say is, Allah has a reason for selecting me, because what my experience has given me is the ability to help people heal. To help them heal.
Alhamdulillah.
I don't want any man or woman to feel dirty, to feel ashamed, because if you knew what was being done to you and you could protect yourself, you most definitely would have done so. But then again, I will not allow my oppressor to victimize me and make me walk around with my head hanging low in shame. No. What it does to marriage is the issue.
This is what I wanted us to go into, because there may be members of the audience who have had traumatic experiences in their past, let's say. It doesn't have to be childhood, before the marriage. And for sure it will impact how they show up, how they communicate, how they perceive their spouse's actions, what triggers them, how they behave when they're triggered. So my question is, what do you say to those who say, it's in the past, this is my relationship now, I don't have to tell my spouse this or this happened because I don't want them to judge me or to see me differently, to treat me differently because I've been through this. Excuse me. I can hold this myself. What do you say to that approach?
I worry about that because most of the people that adopt that philosophy walk around in fear of one day accidentally being exposed. So you're walking in a state of anxiety. And what I tell them is let it out, gain your freedom from whatever is holding you back. It also means that person has no power over you, or whatever it is they may have done to you. But my biggest concern is don't pretend it didn't happen in my acknowledgement. I accepted it happened. But then I also oftentimes will think back, what could have prompted the perpetrator to do what he did to me? Was he also a victim? And most often than not, that is the case. So my fear for all those who have been victimized is to work hard to overcome the shame, the fear, the stigma, and not to be a perpetrator themselves. And to find the courage, accept what has happened. You have a choice. Leave the person to Allah, or you say, Allah, help them heal. It's up to you. But in my case, all of them.
May Allah make it easy. Jazakallah khairan.
I have forgiven all of them.
La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah.
My tears are for those suffering in silence of these experiences, with nobody willing to give them a listening ear to understand the pain they're going through. It's been said, kindness knows no shame. If we had a situation with Mariam, the first time I told Mariam, we then had a fight, and she threw it in my face. One of the things I told her. I remember for 5 years, I didn't confide in her again. For 5 years. This is what many men and women are afraid of.
Yes, yes.
The rejection. This is what we shouldn't do. Everybody wants the perfect wife or the perfect husband. It doesn't happen. Our spouses are tests and trials for us. How we handle it, and many people who know me now will understand why I'm intense about certain things, why I demand certain standards, and I'm not so forgiving sometimes when you mess up. But I want us to give our spouses the peace of mind and comfort to come to us and know they're coming to a safe space to help them heal, to stop the cycle. We culturally, we're really a mess. You see, sorry for embarrassing you, I didn't mean to cry. Anyway, we're a mess. When a grandmother will tell a grandchild who's been molested by a cousin, don't you dare say a word not to destroy the peace of the family. What is this person's life? Nothing? Are women useless? Our daughters nothing? And the women are sometimes involved in perpetrating this thing. In the name of Rufa Asiri? Rufa Asiri what? Somebody's life made useless? With the men, what it causes some of them, promiscuity, alcoholism, I don't know if I said it, financial mismanagement, not caring for the children. Because they were molested, they're so desperate trying to prove they are men, in the process gradually destroying themselves and their families because they never sought a cure. To the brothers, the stories of the women are so many that sometimes after a session, you go and cry. I'm pleading for the men to have the strength, the open-mindedness to let our sisters come to them and be helped and not look at them as dirty, as untouchables, because they didn't bring this upon themselves. For the men, understand it can happen to you and you will be fine, inshallah.
Inshallah. Can we have a takbir, please? Takbir! For the courage to address this topic and to be so open and authentic. This is an honor for us as an audience to have you be this open with us. May Allah bless you in your struggle and your healing, and everybody else in this room who needs that healing. May Allah heal you. May Allah cure you. May Allah make you feel whole again and bless you with a safe place to be able to say whatever it is you need to say. I just want to say one thing to the sisters. We've had reminders for the brothers, for the sisters. Know that your husband is probably dealing with things that you do not know about, that he may not have shared with you. And sometimes the reason our husbands don't share with us is because they don't feel safe. They know that if they tell us something that is maybe a little bit uncomfortable, we're not strong enough to hold that. So we look at them differently. Maybe we look at them, we don't desire them anymore, or we don't respect them anymore, or we hold on to it in order to throw it back in an argument and shame them and humiliate them. Sisters, fear Allah. Just as you want to be able to be honest and open with your husbands, they need to be able to be open and honest with us, inshallah, as women. Because at the end of the day, as brother, we human beings. We're human, all on the human journey, which is full of ups and downs, difficulties and joys. Please let us be together as true brothers and sisters in this journey, husbands and wives. Stand strong for each other, inshallah. Please, may we have another takbir for our brother Saeed. Allahu Akbar. Jazakallahu khairan.
Apologies, Mary. I promised I wouldn't cry. Sorry.